Yeah, so this morning I was in the company chat room talking about how, like in Chrome, all of a sudden things were starting to act weird and not formatted right. And then I was having a problem in VMware, and somehow I think I have disk corruption or something on this Mac. So now I got to go run whatever the equivalent of check disk is on this thing. 'Cause this is sketchy. And I just upgraded to the latest OS 10, some Mojave. And I'm like, oh, sure, I got like 2 weeks before Summit. It gives me enough time to iron out the kinks. Bad idea. Probably a bad idea.
Brent will be buying a new computer by 5 p.m.
Another, please. Yeah, that is not so good. No es bueno. All right, so let's see here. We'll go ahead and get started and see what's going on. Ron Saxer says it must be a Mac. Yes, it was a Mac. The question handling is different on Windows because it's temptingly easy to just right-click and say dismiss Ron. And I don't really want to dismiss Ron. I just want to delete his question. Oh, there's a little trash can next to it. Okay, cool. Marshall Labs. This is going to be like watch Brent learn to use GoToWebinar. Great. Good times. Good.
Yeah, that's my favorite web show right there.
Yeah, watch Brent go bananas. Eric Harrison is here, and he says, Office Space, it'll make you happy. We do what we do. And that's true. Like if you thought about the movies that, of course, we're usually pretty happy about why we do what we do. Not always totally happy, but usually pretty happy.
I don't know. I've been working on unit tests the last 2.5 days, so.
And I notice a correlation between you working on unit tests and everything that we do went to hell in a handbasket. Not even just you, but like our client calls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was. Mm-hmm. Don't do that anymore.
Yeah, forget those unit tests. I mean, who uses them anyway?
Let's see, Josh asks, we have a suggestion for backup jobs to use an SSIS package around to move the jobs to whatever node is the primary in an availability group. Have you seen this setup, and can it work well?
I haven't seen that for the availability groups that I've supported. We had two different methods at three companies that I had availability groups. The last one, we just had a server that would run the backups, and it would just point to the listener name because we always so all of our backups, CHECKDB, or not CHECKDB, but backups, index maintenance, anything that needed to connect to a specific replica, we would just put the jobs on that server instead, and it would be a SQL CMD, and it would point to the listener name. And we did that because for the backups because we wanted the backups to be on the primary replica. I don't necessarily agree with offloading such a critical task.
And why not?
Well, even on a synchronous replica, it's not completely up to date, so that is just a good idea if your RPO goal is so low.
And between that advice too, and if you think about an SSIS package that would move stuff around, there's going to be a delay there. Like your backups won't be up to date until the SSIS package moves the job around, and if that job process breaks, you're not getting backups. I'd be like, I can't unsubscribe fast enough from that plan. What I would do there instead is Ola Hollengren stuff. Ola Hollengren's backup scripts will automatically run on every replica and just back up wherever you tell it to, like if you want to prefer a secondary or if you want to prefer the primary. Configuration's not super simple on always-on availability groups, but it works. Pablo says, hello, friends. Hello, Pablo. I have an 800 gig table that needs to increase the size of a varchar field from 1 to 2. What way would you recommend doing that to reduce impact? Isn't that an instant change?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that this is going to take a while. Run that on a test box.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to be instant.
Yeah, and if it isn't, I would probably just not. I would move the column to another table. I would cheat because your table's just so big. Remove the column. I realize that there's a huge impact there, but.
Oh, somebody had a really good post just recently about a switching cups way to do it. What you do is add a new column with the new data type that you want, but with a different name. You put in a trigger so that whenever an update happens, it sets the new column over to the old value's name. Then you go through and roll through in batches of like 4,000 rows at a time, gradually updating the new column. Then you switch column names.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't know that you
it's 800 gigabytes. And we don't even know that the row count because maybe it's 800 gigabytes because of data, the size of the row.
Yeah, let's try it and see. I'm just going to grab out of the Stack Overflow post table. I'm just going to grab one of the columns, posts only because it. Oh, you know what I'll do? I don't know. The votes has a varchar in it. No, it doesn't. Posts has a varchar, and posts has a decent number of rows in this. I'm going to change title from nvarchar 250 to nvarchar 251. Alter column. And then I'm going to freeze because I get a spinning beach ball. Oh, that's excellent. Column. It's like some kind of pop song. What did I say I was going to do? Title nvarchar 251, and let's see if that happens instantly. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch into the right database, and I'm going to run it. There you go. Yeah, it's in metadata change. It should happen instantly regardless of the number of rows in the table. Love it when we can give people good news instead of bad news.
Doesn't happen often.
It does not happen often. So let's see. Next up, Brian says, "Oh, Brian, this is a great question. Is there a good way to predict how long CHECKDB should take? I've tried to space out my various jobs, but sometimes they step on each other's toes with my jobs running into business hours on the next morning." Ooh. Any ideas, Tara? Richie?
I mean, CheckDB, I don't even like to run that on a production server. I offload that task to another box, which obviously, you have to license that other box. But, so I like maybe a box that maybe doesn't have a lot of hardware, but it can churn through, just running CheckDB and all the databases there, and eventually it completes, and maybe it's doing the work for more than one server. But, it might have lesser hardware, lesser cores for licensing reasons, because you do need to license it.
I mean, do you need to license that?
I do.
I mean,
Yeah.
Development work?
No, because you're offloading a production task. That's the key there.
Semantics.
Yeah. If you just happened to be restoring it every night into your development environment, and you wanted to make sure that your development environment was okay, that's totally still not legal, but there we go. Marcy says, "Hey, did you get my question?" Yes. Jason says, "When you helped us configure our SQL Server 2012 database a few years ago, you recommended that we start with maxed op8, cost threshold at 50, and 8 tempdb data files, and then tweak from there. We're now switching to 2016. Do you recommend we start those same settings?"
Yeah.
Assuming you're going to the same size or bigger of a box. Heaven forbid you're going to a 2-core box or something like that.
Now, I don't know if this is in our setup checklist. I don't think it is, but on 2014 and lower, it's recommended to have trace flags 1117 and 1118. But on 2016 and greater, you don't need that anymore. Because it's on by default for tempdb specifically. The trace flag on older versions would apply to all databases, unfortunately, but still recommended. But not, I don't know if Jason would have that in place anyway. But that would be the one change. If I'm setting up a new 2016 or 2017 server, I'm just not going to be putting those trace flags in place like I would on older versions.
Michael says he is in shock and awe of Tara's new hairdo.
Me too. It's going away this evening.
Oh.
I have an appointment. I mean, not all of it. It's just that's too much red.
It's good.
It needs to have a little bit of brown here, because when I'm on these calls with my clients, I see the webcam picture, and it's driving me. I mean, just batshit crazy.
Really? Oh.
Because you don't have to look at yourself all the time, your normal day. You look at yourself in the mirror, when you're in the bathroom, and that's about it. But the webcam is like, oh my God, my hair is so red.
Well, we do have to look at Brent all the time. It's that required photo of Brent on our desk.
Yes.
It's got the little googly eyes on it. They follow you around the room.
Oh, really? I thought those were cameras, and you were just watching us all the time.
I don't want to see you people. You don't even put on clothes for your job. You're still wearing your PJs from yesterday. I know how this works. So, Marcy.
I actually got dressed.
I did actually shower this morning and don't have my PJs on today. I normally do. My PJ shirt clashes with the hair because it's like a pinkish color, and so it's like, oh my God, I can't wear that. It's a whole thing being a female.
Wow. We Marcy says we have an SSAS cube whose refresh job is in SQL Server Agent. and it failed with physical file corruption.
Ooh.
Why don't I read these questions before
Ooh.
Oh, Marcy, I have job notifications turned on, so I was aware of the failure, but I want other email recipients to see the job log as well without having to log into SSMS. SQL Server doesn't appear to have an easy button to include the agent job log in an email notification, or am I missing something? Oh.
I mean, you could set up something fancier for the failed jobs, but the failed notifications isn't. It's not going to send that out to you. Yes, you would need to go into SSMS. But I mean, how often are jobs failing? It's yeah. I mean, this type of job.
Mm-hmm. Wow, and if you really wanted to, okay, so now I'm going to get really fancy and terrible. I mean, you could do something like, since you're using SSIS already, you could look in MSDB's agent job history tables, and if there's a failed job, you could go look at the file, pick it up, and email it to somebody. That, I think, would be relatively trivial as an SSIS job, not an agent job, but or not T-SQL code. I wouldn't want to do it in T-SQL code, like trying to pull XP command shell and get a file. But I love the idea. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could do it in PowerShell with some Salt or Salt Bay or something.
Yeah. And if you need any help with that, it's Richie at BrentOzar.com.
Actually, I just changed my name to Eric Darling, so you can Eric at Brent Ozar.
It's been a while since we've had Eric do anything with PowerShell. He's not on the call. We should probably assign him something.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I'm the only one in the company that likes PowerShell, so you can send it to me. And I don't really necessarily like it. I don't hate it. You guys hate it.
Right. Well, I don't hate it. I just don't think it's the right tool for every job, right? I mean, I take a look at it from a programmatic standpoint and a developer standpoint, and it's like, why do I want to do everything in this? That doesn't make any sort of sense, which is what a lot of DBAs kind of force. Oh, look, here's my hammer, the PowerShell hammer. Every nail, everything's a nail. Ah.
Mm-hmm. And we've had that same feeling about all golden hammers. We had a question a while ago from someone who wanted to use T-SQL to do bulk copy inserts from files with changing columns and all this. And we're like, no, there are different hammers for different purposes. SSIS is a great hammer for that, lots
well,
of
I mean, it even works for SQL Server features, right? Queues and things, and hey, let me go into this. What is that silly file thing that they had a few years ago?
Well, there were two, file stream and file table.
File stream. I was like, what? No, stop. Just
great
stop.
moments and bad ideas. I say that casually, and then this is when all my Microsoft friends come out with knives, and they're like, what do you mean the feature I implemented is a bad idea? Yeah. Well, it just wasn't a great idea. It wasn't your best idea.
Well, I mean, the use case is a very thin and narrow use case where it is a good idea, and then people take a look at that and say, oh, it's a new feature, then I could use it for everything. And that's when we start getting problem, and they start calling us. And
it seems like Books Online never says this is a bad idea. This particular feature is a bad idea in these circumstances. So I was thinking the other day, you know what, the pages for scalar functions, table variables, etc. in Books Online, they should really have a disclaimer at the top. Hey, bud, before you use this feature, here are just things to be aware of. Yeah. And I thought, well, it's also open source. I could go write that and check that in as a pull request. And I think we all know how that story would end.
Well, the thing is about Books Online MSDN is that, at least for my usage, I don't even look at the top of the page. I immediately scroll down to the examples. So I'm going to miss that. Yeah. It's a bad idea anyway. Yeah. I'm only going out there to look for examples.
Yeah. So the other thing we should do is down in the code examples, we should put in code that specifically doesn't work, like make it break. So then people go, I copy-pasted it, it didn't work. And then they won't read the directions, and they'll just stop. Let's see. Joe says, I'm seeing very high weights for CLR semaphore, 300 seconds in a 30-second sample. Are these truly safe to ignore? Is there anything I need to do to reduce these? For this one, I check Paul Randall's weight stats library. Anytime someone asks a weight stats question, I always want to make sure that they know about that. So if you fire open the web browser, and usually even if you just search for the weight type, Richie is moving his webcam.
Yeah, it was crooked, and now I'm trying to fix it, and then I'm just like, ooh, that's a kind of cool graphic there.
Now he's on a cruise ship.
Walking around drunk.
accurate, actually.
This one's on his ignore list, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, filter out. See, we had it filtered out, but we added it back in so that it was viewable, because I had one client where they were having CLR, really bad CLR weights that we needed that they needed to address, and I didn't even notice them because it was on the ignore list. And it was the Redgate, I believe it was the Redgate free monitoring tool that they were using, which was showing that there was an issue here. And they're like, yeah, we use CLR. And I was like, oh. So, we added it back in because of this one specific client. So anytime I see it as a high weight, because I do see it a lot on clients' machines as a high weight, and I'm like, are you using CLR? And almost always the answer is no. And if that's the case, this is all built-in SQL Server stuff, so contact Microsoft, there's a lot of waiting time. But, like Paul says, it's mostly ignorable.
So CLR is another one of those, hey, it works great in these narrow use cases, and then people start using it for all these other things, and it's like...
Yeah, absolutely. Steve says, here's a stupid question. In Power BI, do you need an analysis services on-premises or SQL Azure to have your users start using this? Everywhere I've read says it uses SSAS or Azure. When it first got started, it was really focused on those databases, but they've very rapidly added compatibility with lots of other databases. For example, I use it with Postgres in Amazon RDS. So you definitely can throw all kinds of data into it. You may need an on-premises gateway server, which is just a VM that the Power BI services will connect to your gateway server and then go pull the databases that you want. For example, Microsoft can't directly query Postgres. They have to go through the gateway server to go do it. But yeah, you don't have to have analysis services or SQL Azure. Colin asks a great question that we'll all have to switch around and answer differently. Colin says, what advice would y'all give a first-time pass attendee? Richie, you're making faces. What would be the first thing that you would...
Go to all the parties. Don't worry about tickets. Go to every party. I wouldn't even worry about attending all the sessions either. I would start the things that I'm really curious about or really interested in and go to those. And as you'll see, as you go on through the conference, you'll hear things, or you'll talk to people. Oh, I was really doing this, or you'll meet speakers like, oh, I'm really talking about this, maybe, and then fill your schedule up with those stuff. Also, don't forget the hallway track. The hallway track is just you wandering around, meeting people, talking with them, because they're skipping stuff like you are, and they have time, and you could find some really good stuff. I remember I was at the Microsoft booth, and I got this this one-on-one conversation with one of the Microsofties about parallel data warehousing. I knew zero, and when I walked out there, I'm like, I know exactly what it's doing. That thing is costly, but kind of cool.
Tara, how about you?
I agree. Make sure you go to all the parties. I mean, you're going to learn some stuff at the presentations that you pick, but it's a lot of pass is networking and meeting people and hearing about their environments, and socializing, non-SQL Server stuff. I think pass still has the newbie, before the I think it's like Tuesday evening. The main conference starts on Wednesday, so Tuesday evening they have a newbie mixer type thing, and so generally it's all first timers there, and so you'll meet first timers, and if you ever go to PASS again, you might see some of the same people, because a lot of people once they go to PASS, they want to keep going to PASS. It is a fun conference, and your company can pay for it because you are learning as well.
And if your company does pay, one thing to do is go to your boss with the schedule and say, can you pick 2 sessions or 3 sessions that you want me in, that when I come back I'll debrief the rest of the team on? So then that way it kind of makes the manager feel like they're getting money's worth out of the conference. Then go sit in those sessions, take notes, and when you come back, go kind of give like a 5-minute, here are the things that I learned, and here's where to go to learn more recap. Because that way then your boss is more likely to send you to the conference next year instead of somebody else who came back and didn't share any knowledge.
Well, the other thing is, don't be afraid to bail on sessions.
Oh, yeah.
Walk you in the first 10 minutes, and you're not getting out what you thought you were getting out of this thing.
Yeah.
Dip, leave. Go to something else. Don't waste your time there on something that maybe it wasn't fleshed out correctly, in the description. Maybe it was a kind of a bait and switchy type thing with the title. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on. Don't be afraid just to get up and walk out, because no one's going to be offended. And if they are, then it's Buck Woody, and you sit your buck back down and you listen to Buck.
It's awkward though if it's a not a highly attended session, because they're going to see you.
And they're wailing as you're walking out the door.
Yeah.
No!
One of my 20 people have left.
Yeah. Brian says, I've noticed on our server we have a ton of databases with different compatibility levels. I guess they retained the original compatibility level from earlier. Should I change this? Is it a good practice to just change compatibility levels when I upgrade the database, other than the whole cardinality estimator thing in 2014?
Oh, he knows about the cardinality estimator. So that is the big risk to me. Joe Sack from Microsoft has a white paper on the cardinality estimator topic, and he says do not change your CE to 2014 or greater, because you need to spend the time testing performance outside of production. He says if you do not have time to do a full test, then do not change the CE. I mean, this is in a Microsoft white paper. It's a fairly recent white paper, I think. So there's risk there. But you're saying, except for the cardinality estimator thing. Well, you do need to test, and depending on how old of SQL Server compatibility level you are, you could have some T-SQL errors. So definitely advise to test that out.
Nika says, we have a client wanting to connect Power BI to our production instance for reporting. Would you use a SQL login or a Windows login, and what difference does that make as far as security? Generally, I would use a Windows login. I would use either that person's login so that you can identify who's running the crappy queries, assuming it's the Power BI desktop that they're connecting in with. And then that way you can shut off their logins when they leave. You'll also hear people say if it's groups of people using Power BI, you're better off with a Windows group, like an Active Directory group, so then your help desk can control those permissions without getting you involved every time. Marcy says, I was wondering if Brent is wearing red pajamas because his red doesn't show. I do have both red and blue pajamas, but I'm not wearing my pajamas today at work. I have a huge wall of windows right over there, so it would be awkward for me to be wearing my PJs where all of downtown San Diego can see me. Not that it would stop me, but would be.
That confused me. I'm like, yeah, why? Huh? Doesn't make any sense.
Not that it would stop me. Oh, Ron asks a tricky question. When would file stream be good?
I have no idea. I've never looked into it.
The one thing that I've seen, the use case that people will say is when you absolutely have to have transactional consistency on a group of files that must be restored to the same point in time as the database. But frick, man, just when you start putting files in the database, there go your backup sizes. So just be really careful. Yeah, so many bad things there. Marcy says it would be so easy for a SQL Server to include a checkbox for this to include it. I'll vote up if I see it suggested. I should have read that. I don't know what she's talking about there, but Brian says, following up on his question, he's using Ola Hollengren scripts for database. Can that be set to run from a different server? Dude, so here's the thing. So when you call scripts across servers, you got to make doggone sure that that call is running every time. Because if that call stops working and you don't get any job failure emails, you're going to assume everything's okay when it's not. So can things be called from another server? Absolutely. You can set up agents centrally on one server to call jobs across other places. You can do linked server calls. There's lots of tricks you can do. But just make sure that whatever you do that it's bulletproof reliable. C asks, speaking of PowerShell, is there a quick way to export query results to an Excel worksheet? I don't know. But
copy paste.
There is, because PowerShell supports the CSV output type, and Excel can automatically read CSV.
So we'll Google real fast because I have a feeling that the DBA tools have it. Export query results to Excel. There's a script. There you go. There's a script in the gallery to do it. I'm surprised that there's not a thing in DBA tools to do it.
I think if you'd switch that to CSV, it might have shown up.
That's probably true.
PowerShell hammers.
Yeah. Although maybe the SEO is not good on their website.
DBA tools, maybe. Yeah, there you go. But there's other scripts to do it, so that's cool. Oh, export CSV. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that is part of the language.
Makes sense. And then last but not least, JH says, I downloaded Ola Hollengren's scripts, and I want to do a test run on just one database. The script is quite lengthy and a bit confusing. Where in the script do I tweak this? It's in the call parameters. So in the stored procedure has parameters for CheckDB or index optimize, whichever one you want to do. And there's a databases list, and you can pass in databases by name. You can pass in exclusions, all kinds of stuff. So very easy to do there.
I mean, going back to the Excel thing, it's a lot more complex than just a CSV. I mean, if you want, different queries on different tabs, and if you want formatting, and if you want, I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on inside of a zip file, which we would call an XLSX file. So I don't know why I would have any knowledge of any of that around here. Someone around here thought it was a good idea to output stuff into Excel. I've never heard of something.
I can't do my job without that file, by the way. So if Brent ever fires me for whatever reason, I have to still use that.
When Richie first started, when we first brought him on, I said, okay, here's the thing that I need you to do. I don't want you to spend more than it was 1 to 3 months or something on it. I was like, but it needs to run all of our diagnostic scripts and put the script results in different tabs. So it would have SP Blitz on one tab, SP Blitz Cache on another tab. But as soon as you say export stuff to Excel, not only is it complicated in terms of dumping out the results, but there's some things that won't work in Excel. For example, query plans. And so Richie wrote this tool that'll loop through query plans also. If the query plan is in the column for the output, it'll go dump that into a separate file and all that. And I know what y'all are going to ask. Can we have that utility? And the answer is no. When we first did it, I was like, look, this is going to get us by for 2 years, maybe 3 years worth of consulting. Because next I'm going to have you build this thing called Constant Care. It's going to take a lot longer, but eventually we're going to switch over to using that. And I promise you won't have to support this. It'll be legacy code. I won't ask for a lot of work. And Richie knocked it out of the park.
And the reason why we use Excel is because we're not always connected to our client's machine. We're connected for a few hours, and then that's it. So this is just an easy way to have all the data collected in one place.
And before we connect to them, too.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't tell you, Brent, is that I have dumped stuff into Excel programmatically for my entire career. So, I mean,
he was born for this job.
we could do it this damn thing again. Oh, crap.
I like that Excel, you just need to have the file with the format you want, and Excel just uses that format. So, you have a template format.
Yeah, it will just dump it to itself. There's a format there, but we could programmatically overwrite that format if people so desire. Which we don't, because it's just easier to format the page
and keep it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this week, and we will see y'all next week at office hours. Adios.
Bye.